Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laurence and I post art videos every other week. So I have a messy desk today because I worked really hard in the past few days and weeks to update my watercolor palette. In the past few months I bought some new colors, so I'm gonna show you what I did because right now I have the final palette and I thought we could do a little swatch card that I could put in the top of my palette like this, so I can reference the colors whenever I want to paint with them. First, I just want to take you through the process that I did to get to this final choice. First, what I did is that I swatched my watercolor palette as I had it. And then I decided which colors I wanted to replace. So the colors where I put an X, I knew I wanted to replace them. And then the one with the triangle and the interrogation mark, I was wondering if I wanted to change them also. I ended up changing the both of them. This is my old swatch card. So here we had Van Gogh Buff Titanium, Daniel Smith Lunar Black. I changed the Van Gogh Buff Titanium as well. So yeah, I ended up changing the both of them. Here I had Daniel Smith Buff Titanium, which I kept. Then I had Daniel Smith Hazel Yellow. I was debating if I changed it because I feel like it's pretty similar to the Hansa yellow. This one is supposed to be my warm yellow and this one is supposed to be my cool yellow. And side by side, yes, this one is cooler than this one, but I feel like it's still quite warm. And I knew that I had another yellow somewhere that could be a little bit better. So I was debating. And then here we have my cool and my warm reds. This is Daniel Smith Quinacridone Rose, and then Daniel Smith Cadmium Red Medium Hue, and then my cool and my warm blues, so Daniel Smith Phthalo Blue Green Shade and Daniel Smith French Ultramarine. So I kept pretty much all of this except for this one and this one. Then here we had Holbein Quinacridone Gold, which is a color that I love so much. The other way I decided what color to change and what colors to keep is just by looking at my palette. There were some colors that were untouched basically, and some colors that I've had to refill multiple times. So the ones that were untouched were an easy choice for me. These are colors that I find myself not using, so might as well just replacing them with other colors, giving other colors a chance. So yeah, Holbein Quinacridone Gold, love, love, love. Winsor & Newton Yellow Ochre, which is a color that I'm using a lot. Then we have Daniel Smith Tiger Eye Genuine. I remember I used to like this color a lot, but I find it very hard to reactivate when it's in a pan. So I think that if I were to use it, it's better to use it straight from a tube. So I decided to take it off. And then we have Daniel Smith Lunar Earth, which I decided to keep. Then the same thing with the Daniel Smith Potter's Pink. It's very hard to reactivate and I don't like the effect that I get when I mix it with other colors. Barely used it, so I decided to remove it. And then two colors that I use a lot, Daniel Smith Quinacridone Sienna and Daniel Smith Transparent Red Oxide. Kept these two. Then here we have White Gouache, which I did not swatch because it's white. And then we have two greens, Daniel Smith Green Gold and Sap Green. Then here we have Spring Green, Zoisite Genuine, all by Daniel Smith. Then we have two colors that I decided ultimately to switch out. We have Van Gogh Turquoise Blue, which is the color that I love so much, but I decided to change it with a better quality. So I know that the colors I switch it with, I'm gonna use a lot. And then Schmincke Hardam Desert Green. I just feel like this color is very interesting in theory, but I find myself never reaching out for it. But as you can see, it's very pretty. There's this color separation with this like red, brown color and that green. It's very interesting, but I feel like maybe it's just not my color. I don't know. Then Cerulean Blue from M. Graham. Then we have Schmincke Hardam Forest Blue and Tundra Blue. We had Raw Umber from Daniel Smith and we had Daniel Smith Duochrome Violet Pearl, which I decided to switch out because although it's an interesting color, I never reach out for it. I never use shimmery colors. I don't even know why I bought that color, to be honest. Okay, then once that was done, I decided to swatch all of my other colors on the same page all of the colors that I had that were not included in this palette. I'll tell you if they're not from Daniel Smith. So here we have Cobalt Teal Blue. It looks like it's very granulating. It looks like a super pretty color. Phthalo Turquoise. At first I wasn't sure if I would include the both of them because ultimately I wanted to replace my Van Gogh Turquoise Blue. Wasn't sure which one to take to replace this one because they're not exactly the same as this one. Stay tuned to know what I did. Then we have Burgundy Yellow Ochre, which I remember is a color that I really liked, and I had to choose between this one and this yellow ochre. But I decided to go with the yellow ochre because I feel like you need a yellow ochre in any palette. Then we have Burnt Yellow Ochre, which is a color that I kind of forgot that I had. It was very nice to find it again. Then we had Grumbacher Cadmium Yellow Pale. So this is the yellow I was thinking about when I was thinking about replacing my Daniel Smith Azo Yellow. I thought this one was cooler than my Azo Yellow. Here we have Undersea Green, which is a color that I recently bought. I don't think I've ever used it yet. Then Mayan Blue Genuine. I remember loving this color, especially when I was doing my big abstract watercolors, which is a long time ago and a totally different style than what I've been doing lately. I can try to link a video here. So if you want to watch it, I think it's interesting. Love that color. The reason that I didn't put it in my palette is that I thought I had enough blues and it's a little bit less light fast than my other blues, so this is what made me decide to not include it. Indentron Blue, which is a color that I really love as well. It's not in my palette. At first it was my warm blue, but some people commented that it's not the best options for mixing, which is why I replaced it with the French Ultramarine. Here we have Rare Green Earth. I had to choose between Zoisite Genuine and Rare Green Earth just because they're so similar, so in the end I chose Zoisite. But I like this one too. Then we have Bloodstone Genuine, Lunar Violet, and then these four are from Schminke Hordem. We have Tundra Rose, Shire Blue, Tundra Violet, and Deep Sea Violet. I put a dot next to the colors that I knew I wanted to include. And then after knowing that, I could check in my palette how much space I had. So I took some empty pans and I just placed them in my palette and tried to visualize how many spots I had, which colors I could put where, and I worked out a final layout. I chose to include Cobalt Teal Blue, Phthalo Turquoise, Undersea Green, Tundra Rose, Shire Blue, Deep Sea Violet, and Burnt Yellow Ochre. I did also swap out the yellow, so I have this one in my palette for now. Once I had swatched everything, it gave me an idea of which colors I found interesting, which colors I thought I would want in my palette. But first I had to figure out which of these two to include to replace this turquoise. So what I did is I did some color mixing on the side because I love mixing this color with quinacridone sienna and transparent red oxide. I love creating some greens and browns with these mixes. So I decided I would do that on the side to help me decide which colors to include. I started with the Cobalt Teal Blue and I added some quinacridone sienna in different amounts. And then I started with the Cobalt Teal Blue again and I added some transparent red oxide. Then I did the same thing with the Phthalo Turquoise, added a little bit of quinacridone sienna in different amounts, and then same thing with the transparent red oxide. Then I did the same thing with the turquoise blue because I thought to be able to compare, I needed to have the original. So this is the turquoise blue with quinacridone sienna and turquoise blue with transparent red oxide. So the mixes I got here are pretty different than the mixes I get with the Van Gogh turquoise blue. But all of them are so pretty. And I feel like these color mixes with the Cobalt Teal Blue and the Phthalo Turquoise have a lot more dimension than these ones. I don't know if it's because the colors are granulating or we have nice color separation. I see a lot of granulation here. I see some here also. I see some color separation, especially here, which I don't see here. Well, maybe a little bit here. that did not help me at all because I loved everything. Well, I guess it helped me. After that, I decided to include the both of them because they're just so pretty. When they're not mixed, they're so different too, so I feel like I would have good use for both of them. Then I had a bunch of color mixes in my palette, so I decided I'm just gonna take these random colors and I'm gonna add titanium buff from Daniel Smith just to see what type of colors we get. And we get beautiful colors. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Then I thought, you know, here I love creating some greens when I mix my turquoise and my kind of orangish colors, but I feel like I did not explore the greens enough, so I decided to redo this mix here. So I used phthalo turquoise with quinacridone sienna, and I just love the mixes. And then I remember I had an ochre pink from Holbein. I thought maybe if I have an extra spot I could include this one. Then I decided on my final layout, which is this. So pretty. Oh, I managed to fit more colors in this layout than in my previous layout. This time what I did is that I wrote the color names on the side, because one of my problems that I had when I would redo a palette is that I would end up with a bunch of loose pans, but I wasn't exactly sure what all these colors were. I did a lot of swatching to match these colors with the tubes. So they all have a name now. They are no longer orphans, unidentified. In this little box I have all of my Van Gogh, and in this tin I have my Daniel Smith or my other better quality colors. Now I think we can have some fun and swatch these and create our little swatch sheet, and then we'll compare the two, see how many colors I was able to fit in this one compared to this one. Let's start with the first row. I'm gonna swatch my white just because I want things to be proper, but I don't think we'll see it a lot, so I won't make too much effort to have it be a pretty swatch because it's not gonna change anything. I'm gonna swatch my buff titanium. What I did while I was making this palette too is that I refilled some of my paints that were getting a bit more emptier. Sometimes I like to lift some part of the swatch just so I get a more complete idea of what the colors look like in different states. Now we have our Grumbacher, so sorry, cadmium yellow pale. Very pretty. I can't wait to see it side by side with the Hansa yellow. A little bit of it. Daniel Smith Hansa yellow. You can see that it's warmer than the cadmium yellow pale. I think I'm gonna have fun with mixing these two yellows. Then Daniel Smith quinacridone rose, which is a color that I remember at first when I put it in my palette, I wasn't sure I would use it a lot because I don't use pinks all that much in my art. But I found myself using it a lot, but for mixes, which I'm very happy about. I like discovering colors, discovering new usage for colors that maybe I thought I wouldn't use that much. Then Daniel Smith cadmium red medium hue. Getting into the blues. So we have Daniel Smith Phthalo Blue, which is such a pretty color and I love using it for mixes as well. Then Daniel Smith French Ultramarine, which I don't use as much, but I think it's a good color to have. Now we get into the neutrals and the earth tones. So we're gonna start with Holbein Quinacridone Gold, which is such a pretty color. Then Winsor Newton Yellow Ochre. Then Daniel Smith Lunar Earth. This one is very granulating. Daniel Smith Quinacridone Sienna, which is a color that I've had to fill back up multiple times. I've used it so much. I find that I love all the quinacridone colors. They're so vibrant. Give me anything quinacridone and I'm gonna love it for sure. And it's so luminous, so transparent. And Daniel Smith Transparent Red Oxide, which is another color that I use a lot, especially in my mixes as I showed you before. Then we have a new one, Daniel Smith Burnt Yellow Ochre, which I'm very happy to include in my palette. I can see myself using it on its own also. Then Daniel Smith Raw Umber, which I feel like eventually I might want to replace it with a sepia. But for now, this is what I have. Okay, now we're going down with the blues and greens. So we're gonna start with Daniel Smith Green Gold. Yeah, I love my quinacridones, but I also love my something gold. I find that these colors are just so luminous, so vibrant. Then we have Sap Green, which I mainly use in mixes. Okay, then we have Daniel Smith Spring Green, which is another color that I use mainly in mixes. I feel like it's too artificial to use as is. Now we have Zoisite Genuine. I also like it in mixes. Then we have a new color, Daniel Smith Undersea Green, which I can't wait to use. And then we added Schmincke Hordem Shire Blue. I don't know why I didn't include it in the first palette, but I think I'm gonna use it a lot. I love the granulation. I love the color separation. Yeah, it's very nice. Now we get into two very exciting colors. Daniel Smith Phthalo Turquoise, which is incredibly pretty. And then right next to it, we have Daniel Smith Cobalt Teal Blue. Then we have a classic Emgram Cerulean Blue, which is not completely dry, but that's what happens with the Emgram watercolors. I think they use honey as a binder, which makes them not dry as much, but I find that it's not a problem. They end up drying enough that I can use them in my palettes. They don't spill or anything. It's just they're a bit softer than the others. Then our last four, we have Schmincke Hordem Forest Blue. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce Schmincke correctly. I have to say I forgot how you're supposed to pronounce it, so blame it on my Frenchness. Then Schmincke Tundra Blue. Then let me do the Deep Sea Violet first. This one is very pretty also. Beautiful color separation in this one. And we're gonna do Schmincke Tundra Rose. Okay, so here are my two swatch cards. This is the old one and this is the new one. So I counted, and in both of them I have 28 colors. I thought that I would have more in this one, but no. This one as my first version was kind of a test for me, and having worked with this one for maybe, what, a year or more than a year, now I know better which colors I tend to use, which colors I want. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with these colors. So let me show you a little close-up. Here we have our primaries. Then we have a row of earth tones and then some more blues and greens and more like convenience colors here. So very happy about this. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any suggestions of colors you think I would like, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was relaxing for you, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye.